Apparently, our last video has caused some discussions more than necessary. It made it to Reddit, and some comments called me coping. I don't know what's cope about it when the math is there. I'm by no means advertising that you should play non-DOT Kafka. I said multiple times in the video that DOT team is where Kafka should be played at. However, if you only care about Kafka and can't be bothered to raise her companions such as Luca or Sampo, you can just use her as hyper carry. I saw many people say they want to roll Kafka, but think she's expensive in terms of investment because they have to raise Sampo and Luca as well. That's wrong, and that's why I made that video. The math shows that as an individual, Kafka can compete with E6 Serval. You do realize how strong E6 Serval is, right? So if you happen to have a hyper carry Serval team, just by transferring the gears and teammates to Kafka, you will get just as satisfactory result, if not better. Luca and Sampo are not necessary, but anyway, I'm just repeating myself at this point. If you want to take a look at the calculation and the variable that I used, just watch that video because now we're about to dive a bit deeper in Kafka theory crafting. Let's talk about Kafka team variations. The first team is, of course, the DOT team. When talking about DOT team, I don't refer to Kafka put in a team 3 DOT characters. You will still need a support to amplify the damage and a sustain character to protect the team, unless you are dreamy and attempting to do 0-cycle run without sustain. So even though the team is called DOT team, in reality, the team composition will still follow the classic team structure in RPG. You have Kafka, a support, a DOT applier, and a sustain. Kafka herself will apply DOT, so this team has 2 DOT appliers, basically. You know who is qualified as sustain, so I will skip that part. We have Silverwolf, Pella, Asta, and Sampo in the support position. The DOT applier options are Luca, Sampo, and Serval. Yes, Sampo's kit allows him to fill 2 roles, so if the support chosen is someone else and then Sampo fills the DOT applier position, the team has 2 DOT applier and 2 supports, which is good. So this is the DOT team. The second team is the hyper carry team that we've discussed before. In hyper carry team, the idea is to put Kafka with 2 or 3 supports in order to let her do as much damage as possible. This team doesn't rely on DOT much. Instead, try to capitalize Kafka's skill and follow-up attack, which has good multiplier. And finally, the third team, which is the team that I choose personally because it's already available for me, is the break team. And no, it's not Kafka doing the break like many people out there are trying to do. In this team, Kafka will assist the breaker by detonating the break DOT. Most elements break DOT lasts for 2 turns. However, if I could place Kafka correctly in the action list, she could trigger the DOT 2 or 3 more times before the duration runs out, which will basically double the break total damage if it were physical or windbreak. In my opinion, this team is the most difficult to execute because it requires different tuning for every battle. But that's just how break team is. You need to constantly fine-tune the team's speed in order to break at the right time, and I love it. So here are 3 different teams that Kafka can use. The real question is, which team is the strongest? I didn't calculate every single combination and only used Asta, Pila, and Sampo as samples. The calculation itself isn't 100% accurate as I ignored their personal damage and only take their buffs and Sampo's DOT to simplify the calculation. But hopefully, this is enough to give you ideas about each team's strength. First, I simulated DOT team with Kafka, Sampo, and Pella. The last slot is always for sustain character. Here's the result. For the second simulation, I switched Sampo with Asta, and now the team becomes Kafka hyper carry. The damage is about 10% weaker compared to the second team. It didn't get blown out of the water thanks to Asta giving 4 extra actions in the same cycle. I can say Asta is very important for Kafka team. Not only does she give speed buff which allows Kafka to act more, she also provides attack buff. I did try to combine Asta with Sampo. This combination is going to have skill point issue, but if you somehow can solve the issue without slowing down the pace during DPS window, it is actually very strong. But yeah, this is hard to achieve once I include SP management. I didn't try the break team because break damage fluctuates a lot depending on the enemy. How fast can you break the shield will affect the team's damage, so I will leave it to live testing once Kafka is released. But usually break damage is weaker than hyper carry. So maybe it is below the second team, I don't know. And that's it for today's video. It is supposed to come out 2 days ago, but I got sick and had to stay in bed for a while. Which team are you gonna use? Do let me know in the comment below.